There's a lot going on with the house. And in this video, we're going to learn some unique things that we didn't know just a few days ago about the construction of this home. So in the process of actually filling 3 holes that are roughly about 2 feet by 2 feet, that are the holes that are placed in the build structure for the bedrooms for air conditioning units. So they basically create a hole for like a carrier type air conditioning unit you can place in there. But in our case, we don't want to do that. We want to seal these holes with concrete so that we can use the split type air conditioners. And in the process of doing that, we actually learned that this house is not built of concrete block like most homes in the Philippines. So stay tuned as you get an update as what actually the build material is, how they fix these holes, and other projects that we're updating to the house before we move in. So come along and let's take a look. So one of the unique things that we learned about the home this week is these are prefab sort of type homes. They're not made with the traditional hollow block, concrete hollow block, or CHB as they call it here. They're actually made with sections that have been prefabricated. Now, I originally thought, given the size of the house and the size of the walls, that maybe they were larger tilt-up type walls. And so we know that the primary homes has a concrete division in Cebu, which is about a 2-hour ferry ride away. So we know that these walls are being made in Cebu and then brought over here to the Dawi Pangnao area in order to be installed as they build the homes. So one of the things that we wanted to do is to put a hose spigot in the front of the house. So the guys are working on that right now. They're coming off of the water main here, off the main hose. They then are going to connect from here. And then they've made a groove into the house in order to be able to cover all that up. So at this point, they're just digging out the final trench for the pipe. I like to see that go much deeper than what they're doing. We'll probably move this around when we put the driveway in. This is the water meter itself. This is actually the main line to the house. And they just kind of did a T off of it here in order to get to this hose bib for us. So it should be fine, but it is something that's a little different how they do it here. You can see how they've cut the hole into the side of the house in order to make the hose bib disappear. That's going to have a nice final outcome once they get to that point. So in the end, it's going to look something, hopefully very close to what it looks like here on the back side of the house, which is here. So ideally, we have it look like this. So it's just the water spigot right on the house and very professional. They've now finished cutting into the side of the house and through the bottom of the foundation, which I'm not thrilled about. I wish they would have just gone over the top. I don't like cutting into foundations, from a water standpoint. You don't want that to penetrate down there. But anyway, before I got back here, they had already cut into the foundation without asking me. So is what it is. Anyway, this is what it looks like before they seal this all up, cover it up. They have since covered the pipe going down to the main. You can see the T right here, and that still needs to be covered. But yes, they use this plastic pipe for the main water valve instead of using, copper or galvanized, steel. There's the water main right there. So the water comes up through a galvanized type pipe, but then once it goes to the meter, it then converts to the plastic. Don't know why they do it that way. It's not how we do it in the US, but the pipe then runs across. It actually runs all the way along here until you get to the house. So you're at the front door now. It's just barely below the surface at all, which seems really risky to me. It could be broken. And then it hangs right here and then goes into the house. And this is actually the water valve to turn it off for the house. So they've now put cement over the pipe, and they're letting that cure, and then they'll continue the patchwork from there. So they finished the hose bib here, and it looks great. It looks very professional. They patched the foundation, put that back together again, and then buried the pipe for the most part, still sticking out over here. But we're going to move that down to under a couple of feet when we get to the driveway. That's what this looks like. I'm happy with that. Now we've got a hose bib at the front of the house. We can wash the truck, water the flowers, everything we need to do. And then the second thing is they've been working on the soffits, and they've been sanding today and starting to paint, and they're making really good progress. Let's take a look. So here's an update on the soffit. They're taking it from looking like this and preparing to paint it so that it looks like this. Covering all the screw holes, getting it all prepared to paint. A lot of hard work as they're working above their head constantly. So as they're prepping to fill the holes for the air con that's built into the structure, you can see this wood panel, and there's another one over here. And the guys we hired to do the work, they came up with a clever solution. And
this one.
They're doing these concrete, giant blocks. They somehow cut the concrete. I'm not sure what it came from. Looks like some type of slab. They're just going to fit that in and then seal it up. I mean, that's brilliant. So hopefully it's thick enough to equal the wall. That will be the tricky part. But hopefully it is. What do you think?
That's okay. It's very hard too.
Hard and heavy, huh?
Hard and heavy. It's easy. They're gonna put it in the hole and then put the cement, paint it. That's it. And then they have 700 each.
Yeah, they're 700 pesos each, which actually is a really good deal. So that's what they quoted us to be 2,100 pesos. That's just about
20 something.
Let's see, that's be 20.
40.
Just under 40 bucks. So the peso is now at 61 at an all-time high. So it's great, a great time to do the work. This is the inside of the air conditioning hole that they're going to fill with those big concrete blocks. So it's just got a piece of wood of some sort on it. This might be plastic, it looks like. So they'll take that out, remove these two pieces of wood, slide that in place, and boy, I hope it's the same width. If the width matches, that would be ideal. I hope that's the case, because if not, that's going to make it difficult. If I look out the window here, you can see the blocks. There they are. So hopefully that's the exact same thickness to make this all work. So we're outside the house, and Lynn just uncovered a little bit of an issue. Here is a hole right along the wall, and it looks like it goes down quite a ways. This is exactly where we heard there was a water canal before, along the wall.
Very soft one.
So we met with the contractor on this and showed him this hole that we found along this main wall. And he said it's just the backfill. But you can see that when they did backfill, they did put down like a concrete, some type of support there that goes along the wall. And it's for some reason in our area, not in others. So as you can see, they're sanding down the soffit now. They've patched it. There was screw holes all over, throughout the soffit from applying the harder drywall material. They then had to patch that with the kind of like wall patch, drywall patch, and then sand it down. So it's getting to a much nicer finished look. So here's an update on the soffit work as they prep it for painting. Making his way all the way around the room. And once all the screw holes and seams are patched, they'll sand it and then they'll go ahead and paint it. So it should look good. So this is the process that they're going through as I prepare these concrete blocks in order to fill the hole for the air conditioners. He actually has a template that he had used in order to cover the window. So he's using that in order to mark it on the actual concrete block and then look at the hole and make sure it's all going to fit. He then takes a special saw that has a concrete cutting blade and then cuts it to the exact dimensions that we need, so that it perfectly fits the house and isn't too big or too small. It's interesting to watch how easily that saw cuts through this, concrete material in order to get it to the right size. The blade's only so long, so what he's going to do is, after he finishes cutting it, he's then going to kind of, in a sense, chisel off the extra pieces. So he'll probably cut both sides here, I would imagine, and then he'll chisel off what is extra. But he's making sure that he's got the dimensions right. Here's another close-up of him cutting. And as you can see, it kicks off a lot of dust into the air. I was a little bit concerned about my camera lens. So I actually came around to the house and then hung out the window and shot this way. Give you a better look at what that concrete block looks like. Now watch what he does with this trowel. He's going to smack it on the side where he's cut to get rid of the rest. I'm kind of surprised that he didn't just cut it more there to get that off. This seems a little bit the hard way to do it. But this guy is the senior kind of artisan here at the complex that we're using. The other guys are more either specialty, like the guy with the short sleeves and the rainbow colors. He's the tile guy. That's his expertise. But you see how he's chipping all that off? The guy in the red shirt, he does more painting and kind of like apprentice type jobs. So the main kind of craftsman, I guess you'd call him, is the guy doing the work here. And they really rely on him on the more difficult things. But you see how he chips away at the concrete in order to get fit. Now he's going to put concrete mortar around it, and so he's probably not too concerned as long as he's got most of it off. But that's actually what he's doing here. He's going to cut it again. Yeah, that makes sense to me. So he takes off what he can with the saw and then has to come back around. Either flip the block over or use the trowel to get it off. Probably be a little more efficient with some type of a hammer. But in the end here, look, he's kind of smoothing it out to a certain degree. Not perfectly, but enough to get it to be close enough dimension to put in the hole. Now I'm just going to cut the other side. You can see all that dust really falling off there. And then taps it. Okay, now they're going to place the concrete in the hole, make sure it fits, but I think they're going to find it's going to be easier to actually put it through the window, give it to the main tradesman, and then he'll do it. So he's going to place it here and see how the fit is. So he's going to test it. I imagine that's quite heavy. And it looks like it for the most part it fits. Alright, now what he's doing is putting in the concrete cement mortar to make it fit. He's actually moving slower than this. I actually sped up the footage by 50%, so you don't have to wait so long watching this. But you can see how he is just putting the mortar on the inside, so when he places the block in there, it'll just kind of all squish together, and then he can do the final mortar on the outside around it to kind of finish it off. So the dimensions of this concrete block are exactly the same as the wall. We're going to learn later why that is. Well, there's a good shot of what the block looks like. Now he's putting mortar around it, because he really wants to just do this one time, right? He wants to just get that, all the mortar in place, and then get it in the window, close it up, and then mortar around it. These are all workers that we've hired after hours from Primary Home, so that's part of the regular job, is to build these houses. So from here, he's just going to mortar around it. They'll do the same thing on the outside, but that's a really good solution since it completely fills the hole. So here he is putting the mortar in place. Again, I sped up the footage 50%. It doesn't really seem like it. It's interesting when you watch a movie on the airlines. I used to work with a company that did the editing on that, and what they told me is that they could take a full feature film and speed it up by up to 10%, and you wouldn't really notice the difference other than it just ends faster. More than that, you would see people moving too quickly. Now, this actually is a 50% speed up. You can tell that when he's trying to get the mortar off of the board there. So he's just going to finish sealing that off. They'll then let that cure, sand it, and then they'll put more of a wall coating on top of it to match it back up to the house. Okay, so here's what the outside of the wall looks like. And again, I'm doubling the speed up to 200%, so this goes by a little faster. But you can see how they put the mortar on. Now he's putting on the final touches here to seal it in. So we get a good idea what that looks like. So he'll smooth all of that out, make sure all the cracks are filled. It's just a concrete mortar. So once he gets that smooth, they'll sand it down and then prep it for painting. So that's how that part of the process is done. All right, I'm back in the master bedroom, and they have come back the second day and have patched over this inside hole where they put that concrete block and then did the concrete around it to seal it. And now they've come with some type of a patch material to match it up to the walls and then sand it down. So that's what that looks like. So once they get that fully sanded, then they'll go ahead and paint it to match the wall. We'll see, hopefully it smooths out. And they're working now on the other ones. So here's the second one in my office. And then I guess they're starting on the guest one, which is the third. So they have placed the concrete slab. You got this one pretty smooth to the thickness of the wall. So now they'll let that cure a bit and then they'll patch over it. So we're getting there. It's going to make the house much more secure. Here's what the outside looks like from yesterday. So they went ahead and put another concrete kind of cement coating on it. This is the one that they just added to my office today. That's what it looks like before they finish the cement and make it all smooth. And here's the third one. So where did you get the concrete from?
To the other.
To the other? And is it the same slab
Yes.
as the wall?
Yes.
So same thickness? Is this what the walls look like? They're not concrete block?
Yes.
They're
It is.
is that? It's like a pre-made concrete and then
Yes.
they
Brick,
tilt and they tilt up the walls? Yeah, so we just learned something new. It's not concrete block in Quatro. These are prefab homes made out of this concrete and then they're tilt-ups. And that's why these blocks fit so well. That's kind of what I thought, but
That's what we call LS blocks.
what do you call it?
Light strong.
Like strong? So it's concrete blocks. Not limestone, but concrete. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that it's concrete. So that's what the house is made out of. So when we take a look back, I kind of had a feeling because I had not seen any like concrete block lines the way that the house settled. So that means that there was prefab concrete forms. The question was, what size was the walls? Because we haven't seen that. All of these homes were finished by the time we looked at this complex. And so we talked with some of the workers that have been here quite a while. One of the workers actually has worked for Primary Homes for 14 years. And what he told us is quite interesting, actually. So yes, it's a bit of a prefab, but it's a hybrid. The actual size of the concrete panels are actually 60 centimeters by 120 centimeters. In English, that's about 2 feet by 4 feet. So they're 2 foot by 4 foot panels. And what they do in order to create the walls is they actually stack them on top of each other. So they'll start down here by the foundation, for example, and then they'll stack one of the 120 centimeters in length by 60 centimeters in width, or 2 feet by 4 feet. They'll stack it on top of each other and then use an adhesive and then glue them together and continue to stack to build the wall. That's how these homes are built all the way up. And then they're able to shape and cut whatever they need to do because the concrete is about 4 inches thick and they have special saws to do that. When they come to a corner like this, they create a column, and in that column, they actually put rebar. So in every corner, it's a bit of a column, and that's where the rebar comes in for the structural strength of the home. Let me take you around here to the side. I think you'll find this interesting because there's a couple more cuts in the house here. And in this case, every cut that you see, like this one, that's a column, and that's going to have rebar going up from the foundation all the way up. And then they're going to continue to stack these pieces, cut them to the size that they need, and then glue them together with an adhesive until they get to the top. As they get to the upper part up here, they just cut it to that particular angle. So it's interesting. It's, in a sense, it's like the beginning of like a concrete tilt-up that they do for commercial buildings primarily in the States, but instead it's in small sections so that they can customize it to build the homes. I thought you'd find it interesting that that's how these homes are built, in these small kind of 2 foot by 4 foot sections. And we also found out that the concrete's a little bit softer than concrete block. I would prefer the hardness and the strength of the concrete block, but for whatever reason, it's slightly softer in these panels. And they are 4 inches thick, and that's why they were able to actually use these panels to cut the holes for the air conditioners, where they fill in the hole where the space was left in a small section for the carrier air conditioner. So that's how they did it, is they sliced open these panels, cut it to size, and placed it into the hole and cemented it in. But it's interesting, always learning something new as we buy a house here and get it ready to go before we move in the Philippines. All right, I want to give you an idea of what 120 centimeters by 60 looks like. So I put out the measuring tape here at 120 centimeters. Say that right. So here is 120 centimeters. And then what I've done is I've put these black books to mark off where 60 centimeters would be. So when you look at this, and it might be easier to look at it from this way. So this dimension, so 60 centimeters would be right to my finger here, wide at the edge of this book, this black book. Up to the next black book is 120 centimeters, and then it's coming across at 60. So the panels that they build these houses with are that size. So 60 centimeters wide by 120 centimeters long. To put that in perspective, if you are coming from the US, 120 centimeters is just a short of 48 inches. You can see it there on the tape. And 60 centimeters would then just be short of 24 inches or 2 feet, which would make sense. So really, you're looking at almost 2 by 4. 2 feet by 4 feet. That's the size of the panel that they build these homes with. So these panels are about 4 inches thick, I believe, and then they stack them, and then they use an adhesive to build the wall. And then whenever there is a corner, they put in rebar and make a column out of it. But the concrete walls are literally stacked, this like 2 feet by 4 feet or 60 centimeters by 120, the inside dimensions of these black books with the tape, and that's how they create the walls. So if we look at this rental house that we're in right now, and in this case, yeah, this is concrete here, probably because it's structural, even though it's on the interior, because you're going up to the second story here. So this wall is going to be made out of those 60 by 120 pieces. They then stack them up on top of each other, glue them together, then they put a cementitious coating on it, right? That looks like cement, like a smooth cement finishing coat, and then they paint it. So that's how they build these houses, which is quite interesting. And then as you get into the structure up here, like the ceiling, that's probably more columns. Like this one has a very formal column, and then that's going to have rebar. Interesting. Bit different process than how they build in the States. Well, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you learned something interesting about the construction of the home and all the different projects that we're doing, so that if you buy a home in the Philippines, you're prepared and know what you need to do before you move in. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.